Welcome to the Deer Society Podcast. Here's your host, Brian Lemke.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Deer Society Podcast, episode number 4. I'm Brian Lemke, and today I have with me Chris Ducart, and we are joined by industry-leading predator hunting expert, Heath Baker. How you doing, Heath?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Welcome to the Deer Society Podcast. Heath, let's kick it off. Tell us a little bit about what you do, some of your hunting background, and I know you're not just a predator hunter, but that's something that has really taken over your career. So tell us about your kind of hunting background and some of the things that you are doing currently.
Well, I started hunting coyotes at 14, but before that I deer hunted, and my best friend's dad took him and I out on a coyote hunt one time, and I didn't know what to expect. You know, there's these wild dogs running around out there, and he said you can make them come running into you. And so, you know, he hunted coyotes because he was a big-time deer hunter. And, you know, he talked about predator control on his property, and he wanted to grow big deer. And so we went out to hunt coyotes, and that first coyote that came in and I shot it, I was just hooked. Yeah, I mean, it was just so exciting, and it just kind of grew from there. I mean, I fell in love with it, and, you know, as a deer hunter too, you know, it's just one of those things that helps your success deer hunting. I mean, every coyote you shoot, that saves, you know, a deer on your property. I mean, that could have been that 200-inch deer or whatever. So, but yeah, it kind of grew, and from there, I was on Sportsman's Channel with a guy named Steve Kreiner for a while on Dog Soldier TV, and I started my own thing with Alpha Dog Down. And just putting content out there and having fun and hunting coyotes and trying to educate people on how to do it also. So it's been a trip.
Awesome. Well, some exciting news that we want to let you all in on here. Coming up, look for it here launching soon, is actually the brand new Predator Society. The Predator Society is going to be an online platform, and the face leading the Predator Society is going to be Heath Baker. And we are going to be working on a lot of things, but really bringing you guys tons of content, just like the Deer Society, but it's going to be the Predator Society. So Heath, tell us a little bit about that.
I'm freaking jacked, man. I mean, I cannot be more excited because, for one, the way you guys put content out there and the way you guys educate people is exactly like what I wanted to do from the get-go because, you know, like I said, when I shot that first coyote, I felt that rush, and it was just so exciting. And I, you know, through my social media platforms, I've really tried to educate people on how to experience that also, and how to be successful, you know, coyote hunting, to help their deer population and predator control on their properties. But I mean, it's just an experience of its own. It's a whole different, you know, realm outside of deer hunting, because, like, you know what I'm saying, deer hunting, you're sitting there and for lengthy periods of time, and I'm sure you're like me during the rut, you sit there all freaking day, you know. Absolutely. And you just love every minute of it. You eat 10 peanut butter and jellies, and by 11 o'clock, and, you know, you're just chilling. But when you're coyote hunting, you know, you're there for 10, 15 minutes, you're on another stand, and it's a rush, man. And when you see the coyote come running in, it's just a whole different deal. I mean, it's awesome. But there are a lot of aspects to it and a lot of things that, you know, that I've learned over the years, and I'm still learning. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the best predator hunter out there. I would never say that. I am good at what I do, and I love doing it, but it's a constant learning process, you know. I try to be a sponge and just learn as much as I can and try to get better at it every time I go out.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about. And, you know, it's fitting that we're having this conversation this time of year. You know, it's spring, and fawns are just starting to drop. We actually saw a fawn this morning, brand new,
awesome,
and laid up there. And, you know, coyote hunting, it plays a big role in, you know, you mentioned controlling right. your predators, and right. It plays a big role in the success potentially that you could have, you know, deer hunting as well. So there's a lot of overlap there. I think there's a lot of overlap too, as much as it's different than deer hunting. Some of those tactics that you can use, you know, right. and that come into play with predator hunting also relate back to deer hunting. So the Predator Society, one of the things that we're really going to try to bring to you guys, just like the Deer Society, is as much education. We want to make you guys better predator hunters. Heath has done it all over the United States. How many coyotes did you shoot this year, Heath?
Oh my gosh, a bunch. Personally, I think I've killed 70, and then I don't know how many I've called in for my friends and just people. I've guided some people, and then there's always those misses, but we won't talk about those. But I mean, we kill a bunch, and I film, and if we weren't filming, because that takes up some time, it probably would be, almost double that. But yeah, we kill a lot of coyotes, and it's crazy because the family farm, whenever I first started coyote hunting, we had a really good deer population, but you wouldn't believe how many coyotes is on a 120-acre piece. Because in that one season, I killed 25 coyotes off that 120 acres. It's insane. But you have coyotes that are transient that travel around and they filter through. But think about how many fawns those coyotes, kill during that time. Absolutely. And like I said, you never know if that was your 200-inch deer. So to me, if you're making the effort to plant food plots and hang all these stands and put all this effort and work into your property for deer hunting, it just makes sense. Why would you not try to control the predator population too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. We strive to put as many variables as we can in our favor when it comes to deer hunting. And we all think about the things like food plots and tree stand placement and wind direction, all these different things. And I won't say that it's overlooked, but, why not try to control that predator population, if you can, and like you said, predator hunting is not necessarily the same time as your deer hunting either. When do you do most of your predator hunting?
Well, I'm pretty diehard, so I hunt year round. I mean, I was told one time it was 95 degrees out in July, and a guy said, "You can't kill a coyote today," and I went out and killed 5 of them. You just got to know, you got to be smart about it and really, have a strategy for it. I mean, they got to eat, so. But my favorite time of the year, truly, to hunt coyotes is probably December through into February. But your tactics change year round. I mean, and that's what I think, people that are starting out and even guys that have been doing it for a while, if you really want to be successful at it, you got to ask yourself, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? It's no different than deer hunting. Why am I hanging the stand right here? Why am I facing it this way? The more specific you are with your plan and knowledgeable, the more successful you're going to be. And through the Predator Society, I think, that's going to be the ticket, because we're going to put that information out there to help people, make those decisions and be more successful.
So for someone that's a novice hunter like myself, well, a predator hunter, what makes December through January such a peak time for hunting?
Well, I mean, it starts to cool off, and obviously if it's getting colder, the coyotes have to eat more food for energy. And so then during that time, your rabbit distress is going to work, rodent distress. And then whenever you get into into January, the breeding season starts, so then your vocals start to work. And you're going to have a lot of success on female hows. I call it the coyote rut, you know what I mean? Because the males are out looking to breed females. And then as you transition out of that and the females, after breeding season, then, you get into that denning season. So then pup distress starts to be the primary sound you would use. So, I mean, there's a lot of different variables that kind of fall into place. So, and it does change a little bit with, where you're at, your region, and, the time of the year and all that. And then there's all kinds of stuff to fall into, different tactics on hunting, different terrain. Because I'll tell you right now, it's a whole different ball game from just hunting back home in Missouri to here. And a completely different ball game hunting out in Colorado, where it's completely open country and you can see for miles, rather than I'm at home hunting a 10-acre cut bean field.
Yep.
So,
going back to the time of year that it is and the fawns, and we've all seen pictures of coyotes running by a trail camera with a fawn in their mouth and things like that. So you talk about the family farm and you shot those coyotes off there. Did you see a reflection in the deer herd in years following that? And do you think that was one of the things that contributed to it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our food plots were loaded, after the first 2 years of just smashing coyotes on that place, because there was a ton of them. Our bucks, also felt like the deer were more calm when they came into the fields, because how many times have you ever been deer hunting and coyotes come out and you're all excited because all these deer coming in, or there's that big buck, and then a coyote pops out and they start blowing and run off. That wasn't happening anymore.
And that's huge. That's another thing we all think about the fawns, but they do take a toll on the fawn population, but also they can screw up your hunt pretty bad, pretty quick. You know what I mean? Question. So we talked about this with Andy Ork a few weeks ago, and you get into a stand situation and you're out there and it gets dark and you have deer in front of you. We talked about howling like a coyote to scare some of those deer away. What do you think about that? I mean,
I wouldn't recommend it, because in my opinion, you talk about pressure, and making the deer, like, I don't know what's the word I'm trying to say, put them on edge, Well, we worry about us and putting our scent out there too, but we're not the only predator out there hunting those deer. I mean, the coyotes do also. So if they hear that, they're gonna associate that with that spot, so it's gonna make them a little more cautious in that area. And I don't want to make my deer any more cautious than I need to.
So what's your tactic? What would you recommend on how to get out of a stand when there's deer around you in the dark?
A slingshot? I mean,
yeah. I guess there's no real.
No, I mean, really, whenever I set up my stands, like, and you can't do this always, but I try to have an escape route, like an ideal, way I can slide down and get out. Like, I like to put my deer stands on the edge of a field where I can slip in through like the CRP and just go straight up into it and slip right back out without being detected. But I understand you can't always do that, but in the situations that you can, just be very strategic about it.
Absolutely. What, like we talked, coyote hunting, deer hunting, obviously similarities and differences, but a lot of similarities. Coyotes, I don't know if they've ever, or if what has a better nose. Does a coyote have a better nose? Does a deer have a better nose?
I mean, I don't know what the actual stats are on that, but I'll tell you right now, a coyote has an amazing nose, because I've been winded by a coyote at 400 yards before. And I mean, it's unbelievable. And just like a mature buck, a coyote works off its nose. And that's why, it's so important. Like, I'm getting back into like these tactics that are vital to truly understand and be knowledgeable about, to be successful at it. But wind is the number one. And there's a lot of guys out there, oh, no, the wind isn't. Yes, it is. I mean, it truly is, because if you're not taking care of your scent control and you're just going out there without paying attention to which way the wind's blowing, and that coyote catches your wind, I mean, they'll catch your wind before you even see them, and then you don't have a chance. So, I think that, when you deer hunt, you play the wind, but you have to really be mindful of your scent control when you're coyote hunting too. It's no different.
So, when you set up for a coyote stand, where do you want the wind? Are you always playing it so, the wind's in your face, or you're expecting the coyotes to come from different angles? How do you set up, and pay attention to the wind?
Well, when I walk into a coyote stand, my brain's like a computer. I'm trying to say it's a stand that I've never made before. I'm looking at it for the very first time. First of all, before I even get out of the truck, I'm looking at it on Google Earth or on X or whatever I'm using, and trying to figure out where exactly I think the coyotes are going to come from. Now, I'm not always correct, because you don't know where they're going to be at. How many times have you been driving down the road and they're standing right in the ditch? You never would expect that, But more times than not, I know this, and the guys that hunt with me, when I sat down, I'm like, the coyote's going to come from over there by that draw. It's going to come down the fence. It's going to try to circle the wind, and you're going to shoot it in this ditch. And it happens like that every time. I mean, not every time, but a lot of the time. So whenever I walk in, I like to hunt like a crosswind. Basically, I want the wind blowing from the coyote in front of me, where they're going to come from, in front of my face or in my face. But I would rather hunt a crosswind than anything. But the biggest thing is you want to target where you think the coyote's at and get the wind blowing from the coyote in front of your face or in your face.
Sure.
Because they're always, 99% of the time, the coyotes are going to circle.
Interesting. So we all can plan for the best. We've all experienced deer coming from downwind, coyotes coming from downwind. Take us through your scent control regimen and some of the things that you try to do to eliminate or that human odor a little bit.
Well, I'll be 100% honest with you. Whenever, we first talked and I got some of the phase products and started using them, I was just like, because I never in my life thought that I could fool a coyote's nose. Never. I mean, that's just a thing out there. Everybody believes a coyote, no matter what you do, you're not ever going to fool a coyote's nose. So I gave it a shot, and, we went through the body wash and the lotion, which I'm not going to lie, that lotion's awesome. Like I carry it around in my truck and put it on all day. It feels nice. But, so we go out and we went through everything. And the very first stand, I intentionally made a stand with the wind blowing directly where I thought the coyotes were. And you guys, you've probably seen the footage. I call a coyote or double in, and they stand directly downwind and just stand there. And they knew something was kind of up, but they didn't have that flight instinct. And they stood there for 4 minutes directly downwind. And finally, one of them walked off, and he wasn't spooked off by any means. And then we smashed the other one. And then the very next stand did the same thing. A coyote pops out, and it's just standing about 100 yards away from us. And there's a little flag in the field, like a marker, and it's blowing right at the coyote. And I'm just like shocked. I'm sitting there like, no freaking way. Because it's a game changer. It truly is.
Absolutely.
So it changed my whole philosophy on scent control and being able to fool coyote's nose. Because if you think about it, that ups your odds for success tremendously.
Absolutely. That's what we've experienced in the deer hunting woods, the ability now to, you obviously still want to hunt with the wind when you can.
Right.
But you're always going to have a deer, whether you're calling or whatever it is. You're going to have that deer or a doe or whatever it is circle downwind.
Right.
And if you can provide that extra layer of protection, give yourself that advantage where they're not going to smell you, or they're there long enough where you can get by them or you can kill them, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an absolute game changer, and it's awesome to hear that you've had such good experiences with coyotes because, like you said, it's a game changer in your world too.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, whenever I sit down, I know exactly the point where the coyote will catch the wind. And I always tell my camera guy, or whoever's hunting with me, we have to kill the coyote before he gets right to that tree because that's where the wind's going, And now it's not like that, So. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't take the wind completely out of the equation, but I don't have to worry about it near as much.
That's awesome. Unbelievable. What, Chris, you talk about being a novice predator hunter, and I'll be honest, I'm a novice predator hunter at best as well. For somebody to go out there, like Chris or I, what advice would you give them, because that's, from Whitetails from Scratch, Chris, that's what you guys are trying to do is build your property. And that's one of the things that we're going to incorporate here coming up in the future years is trying to control that predator population. So what would you tell somebody like Chris, getting started, going out there, what to look for and some things that he can do to maybe have some success? Well,
the first thing is kill coyotes. You got to have coyotes, and there are some properties and places that just don't have a big, coyote population. So do your scouting, do your research. I mean, obviously, if you're getting coyotes on your trail cameras, they're coming through there. The other thing is, you should do your research on what time of the year what sounds to use certain times of the year. And obviously, we talked about scent control. That's huge because if you go into a property and your wind is blowing at your back and you're walking in and, you're spooking out these coyotes before you even have a chance to call them. So you really, like I said, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I blowing this out? Why am I walking in from this direction? Why am I sitting in this specific spot? You should be able to answer your own questions with that.
Are you ever trying to locate a coyote den or get close to where they actually live?
During denning season, yeah. I'll hunt around dens, but not necessarily. I target coyotes by, in the early mornings, they're more prone to be out in the wide open fields, Because when you're driving, how many times have you been driving in an early morning and you'll see a coyote in a wide open field, but in the middle of the day, you never hardly see that because they don't feel as threatened when they're out there. So I hunt my open stuff early in the morning, and then after that, I go to the thicker cover, and then later in the evening I start to hunt, back to the open country.
So do you do most of your coyote hunting during the day, or do you do some at night too?
I coyote hunt at night. I've coyote hunted at night in Colorado and Texas, and that's another whole different realm. I mean, I love calling coyotes in the day because you get to see them work, and I mean, you can see them work at night too, but it's crazy because at night, that puts if you live in a state where you can coyote hunt at night, it just ups your odds of just truly helping your coyote population because you can sit out. I've sat out in a wide open cut wheat field, literally in a lawn chair, and with my gun on a tripod, and the coyotes they're a different creature. They're not near as cautious at night. And they don't have eyes at night like most people think. I mean, I've called coyotes into 10 feet at night, and I was sitting in the wide open. I mean, if you go on the YouTube channel, you can see it happen. I mean, there was 2 coyotes standing 10 feet from me, and I'm just sitting on a stool. So, I mean, it's just a whole nother tactic, If it's, you got to do your research though too, because I wouldn't go, oh, that sounds like fun, and go out and start shining a light around at night, try to kill coyotes, because it's not legal everywhere.
Yeah. So make sure you check before you go out there predator hunting at night. Make sure you check it's legal there in your state. How do you think? So do you coyote hunt? And I know that you do the same areas that you deer hunt. So you're possibly conflicting hunting coyotes, during deer season. How do you feel about that? And what's your thoughts there?
It goes like this. Sometimes a deer hunt turns into a coyote hunt. So
there you go. Yeah,
it does. I've shot a bunch of coyotes with my bow. If a coyote walks by when I'm deer hunting, I smoke it with my bow. I mean, why would you not? Unless, Big Daddy's standing out there and I don't want it to hit and he's not spooked yet, then I'm probably not going to do that. But, I will shoot a coyote with my bow. But I do coyote hunt where I deer hunt, but I kind of shut it down about October. And I don't, regardless if I deer hunt there or not, I'm not making stands at the same spot every single time. But I definitely don't do that on my deer properties because all you're doing is creating a pattern and leaving scent in the same spot, right. So you're educating these animals and making them more, cautious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the appeal for me in predator hunting is that some of the best times I think to predator hunt are not during deer season, and it's something to do. It's something to get out there in December right. and January. And, when you're not really putting too much pressure on your deer herd, right. To take care of some of those predators then.
And it's almost like the deer know when they're not in season. I mean, you know how it is.
It seems like that.
They know.
They get educated.
Yeah, so they're just standing out there looking at you like, hey, I made it, But the other thing is, like, you're out there more, so it's almost like you can take an inventory on, because I see a lot of deer when I, coyote hunt, when I get out there early mornings. And I remember a deer I shot 2 years ago, I didn't even know he was on the property. And the season was over, and it was December, and they hadn't dropped antlers yet. And we walked out and we sat down, and my buddy said, oh my gosh, look over there. And there was this big freaking buck standing over there. I'm like, I've never seen that deer in my life. I never would have known he was there. And then the next year, I freaking killed him. So,
Yeah, kind of cool. Gives you an opportunity to get out there and possibly get some inventory of your deer.
Yeah, or find sheds.
There you go. Yeah.
I found 90% of the sheds I find, I'm walking coyote hunting.
That's awesome. As far as, let's get into some tactics on predator hunting, and Predator Society is not going to be, we're talking a lot about coyotes here today. It's not going to be all coyotes. You shoot a lot of foxes. You shoot,
bobcats, feral pigs, which is a freaking blast too.
Yeah.
So I want to go on a wolf hunt. That's on the bucket list. But yeah, I mean, and if you turkey hunt, and you live in areas where there's a lot of bobcats, I mean, it's a whole different tactic to call a bobcat, and you got to have patience. And when you're calling bobcats, you don't shut the call off. Leave that call going, because when you shut it off, they lose curiosity like that. And you can switch up that sound, more frequently on a bobcat to keep its attention than you can a coyote. So, I mean, there's just so much. I could go on and on and on about this stuff, but we'd be here for 2 days probably. So,
what do you use? Do you prefer electronic calls, hand calls? What do you use most? Is it a mixture of both?
Yeah, I mean, I use both, but there's also like different strategies. Like if I'm hunting a wide open field, And I have a ghillie top that I wear when I hunt open country like that because sometimes there's just nothing to sit by. You know what I mean? So I built this ghillie top that helps me, hide in the grass or whatever. But I don't want to blow a hand call for that coyote to come straight at me, so I might put my electronic call farther out to dictate where that coyote's going so he doesn't focus his attention on me. But to be 100% honest with you, I love hand calling coyotes. Absolutely love it. And one of the reasons is because, I feel like, especially in places where there's a lot of predator hunting pressure, a lot of the people use the same sound. So a lot of these coyotes are educated, but you can create a whole new sound off a hand call. And I've had so much luck blowing a hand call, killing coyotes. Like, when my buddies go with me, they're like, don't even bring the electronic call, just use your hand calls, because we truly call more coyotes in off of hand calls than we do. Well, they never call, I call, but yeah. So
do the hand calls give you just that much more versatility then?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because you can, I'll get into this, but if you have closed read, open read, but I can do anything on an open read hand call. So I can be going from rabbit and then bang, there's a coyote, boom, I shoot the coyote, want to jump right into pup distress, I can jump right into pup distress on that open read hand call. Because usually when you shoot a coyote and if there's another one, you jump into pup distress, that'll at least stop the second one, if not bring it back. So yeah, hand calls are definitely a versatile tool to have. And if you're a predator hunter, I feel like you are obligated to learn how to blow a hand call. It made me a better predator hunter. To be honest with you, I didn't use an electronic call until about, 4 years ago? And the most coyotes I ever killed in a season was 81, and they were all hand called, every one of them.
How difficult would it be for Chris or I to go out there and use a hand call?
It takes some practice, but if you have some direction with it, it's not hard at all. I just drove to western Kansas with a buddy of mine, and he had never blown an open reed hand call. And within 5 miles, I had him howling on it. So if you have the right direction, it's simple. I mean, it really is.
Awesome.
And it's just so much more gratifying to, shoot a coyote that you called in, that you created the sound that brought that coyote in.
Absolutely. Well, and having that versatility is huge.
Yeah.
What is one of your biggest techniques or strategies you use to actually bring in coyotes? Is it calling or is it something else? No,
it's definitely calling, but there's a sequence to things. So in the early mornings, I usually start out my stands with a howl, until about 10 o'clock, then I shut it down. And then I just strictly go, because you don't ever really hear coyotes howling, in the middle of the day. In Colorado, I have sometimes, but so when they howl back, I listen, and if I hear an aggressive coyote that's territorial, like a challenge howl, and a lot of people are like, what's a challenge howl? Well, that's something that we're going to educate people on. This is what a challenge howl sounds like, and when they do this, this is what you do. You challenge back, and this is how you challenge back. So it's going to break it down and make it so simple. It's like A plus B equals C, instead of what in the world do I do now? I don't know. They just howled. Push rabbit, I don't know, Yeah. And I think a lot of predator hunters struggle with that. They're like, they did this. Well, I know they do because I get a ton of messages through Facebook this happened tonight. I'm frustrated. They howled. I turned on rabbit. They didn't show up. What did I do wrong? I said, well, you got them hooked on vocals. You got them to vocalize. So stay with that, and challenge back. And if they don't come, turn on pup distress. And 90% of the time, if you get a coyote to challenge you and you hit pup distress, he's going to come in, you're going to shoot him.
Awesome.
Well, you're going to get a shot at him. Let's put it that way.
What do you think your success rate from pulling the trigger to actually getting the coyote is? So how much do you miss? That's what really.
All right. So I like to think of myself as a pretty good shot, but I have my moments, okay? Honestly, I probably kill 9 out of 10 coyotes. But I will not lie. When I first started, I bet I missed my first 20. Buck fever. Well, there's such a thing as coyote fever, and the people listening to this that have been out there, yeah, I know. You just go full blank, and you're just I don't know what just happened. I pulled the trigger, and I don't even know what happened. And the next thing you know, the coyote's running off, and you're like, oh my God, I'm horrible, and I don't want to do this again. But no, I literally missed my first 20 coyotes, and I was getting so frustrated. And I'll never forget, I was 15. No, I wasn't. How old was I? I was young, but I went home and I cut out cardboard silhouettes of coyotes and set them out in the field out to like 300 yards. And it sat there and I shot and shot and shot, you know, and I got better at it. And, you know, there's all kinds of strategies and things that I do to help me, like, that help me become a better shooter, and tools that I use that help me become a better shooter. I mean, going out there and try to freehand shoot a coyote at 200 yards is probably not going to be you're not going to be very successful at that. Mm-hmm. But having the right tools to keep your gun steady and different breathing techniques that I use, I mean, that's getting real technical, but that's how technical I get to be successful.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that relates back to deer hunting too. I mean, the things that make you a better shooter make you more successful, whether you're predator hunting or deer hunting. And Chris, maybe you can elaborate on this, on some of the shooting things as well. You were a Marine. So, you know, do you have any tactics, you know, from your deer hunting background or from the Marines that you could, you know, recommend to people to possibly make them a more effective or efficient, you know, shooter?
Yeah, it just comes down to basically finding out the right information, you know, just starting from scratch. It's like anything. If you're starting out the wrong way, you're going to end up doing things the wrong way and learning things the wrong way. So you want to first start out, get the proper information on, you know, techniques and, you know, just all the different aspects of shooting. And then it just comes down to practice as much as you can, and then transitioning from practice to practice in the field per se.
Right.
I don't know, I'm assuming, do you have any other extensive training or anything like that when it comes to shooting, or has it just been practice?
I've shot some 3-gun before and some other competitive shooting, but I think the biggest mistake that predator hunters make in preparing for a coyote hunt is they go out and they put their guns down on a bench and they shoot off this, you know, this bench that holds their gun dead still, and they're like, oh, my gun's dead on. I can smoke this steel plate at 500 yards. I'm going to kill every coyote I see. And then they get out there and they sit down and they got their gun in a set of shooting sticks that's not, you know, it's sturdy, but it's not like shooting it off a bench. And then you got that adrenaline factor kicking in. So when I practice, yes, I'll zero my gun on a bench. I know that sucker is 1.5 inches high at 100 yards, and at, you know, 240, whatever, it's dead on. And then I will go out and shoot steel plates or whatever, shooting off my shooting sticks in my seat as if I was coyote hunting. It just makes sense, you know what I mean?
Is there any way to bring the adrenaline or stress in? I know when I was in the Marines, I went through a designated marksmanship course, and it was run by the scout snipers in our company, and we had to go out and we were shooting targets, but they were running around and they were twisting our windage and our gauges and then messing with us and, you know, totally jacking up everything we were doing. To kind of add that little element of stress to bring into that, is any way to practice that to get that?
I have no idea. I guess have your buddy smack you around when you're trying. I have no idea.
I don't know if you got any techniques outside of just...
No. I mean, the biggest thing is you just got to breathe.
Yeah.
You have to remember to breathe and focus in the moment, you know, like aim small, miss small. That's a real thing. Like if you're focusing on a specific point on that coyote, you're more likely to hit the thing, unless, you know, rather than I'm just going to put the crosshairs on it and squeeze and pray. That, you know, that's not a good idea. Aim small, miss small. So.
Well, and I'm sure that's a common thing, you know, especially with coyotes. You know, a lot of the time they're on the move. You know, they're not staying still for very long. And, you know, same with deer hunting too, whether you're shooting a bow or a gun, or, you know, aim small, miss small. It's really easy to go out there and, you know, a deer, especially being a bigger body, it's real easy to aim at the body and throw up a prayer and hope for the best. But, you know, you really need to focus, pick a spot, and squeeze the trigger.
Yeah.
You know, on those moving coyotes, how much do you lead them? You know, I guess it depends. Do you lead them at all?
It depends. I mean, yeah, whenever it really depends. I don't even know how to explain this. That's just something that you when you miss enough out of them running, you'll eventually get to where you're going to hit them. I mean, but most calibers that you're shooting are shooting fast enough that you shouldn't ever have to hold off of that coyote's nose. And my rule of thumb is I usually hold right in front of that throat area if it's within, you know, 200 yards. If it's 3, I'm holding on the tip of its nose, you know. So, I mean, there's, as far as shooting and long, like the other thing is long range shooting, people make that way harder than it actually is on a coyote. Way harder. And I could talk about that, you know, for days, but if you think about it, the average drop of between a .223 and a I don't know, a 22 250, you know, you're looking at about 14 and 16 inches at 400 yards. So in your head, if you hold about, you know, X amount of inches above that coyote and squeeze the trigger, you're probably going to hit that coyote. Instead of, I'm just going to hold above him and pull the trigger. Well, why? How high are you holding above that coyote, and why? You know, you just really need to think about why you're doing the things you're doing. You know, it's like, just like I said in deer hunting, you're not just going to walk out, oh, that tree looks good, I'm going to put it here, and expect to be successful. No, why am I putting it here? There's a trail, there's a pinch point. I got trail cam pictures of a big buck walking through here. I mean, it just makes sense. So
Yeah, it's creating a game plan, and then it's practice. You know, I'm sure that comes with practice as well, you know, and knowing how far, you know, how high above that coyote to aim.
Right.
And that comes with a lot of.
But like Chris said, practice makes perfect, and you know, I know it's not cheap to go out and shoot ammo, but when you do, make sure it's quality. You're not sitting there just, you know, sitting in round after round down range without truly focusing in on the techniques you were talking about, and you know, like truly looking at what you're doing, and am I like reinforcing bad habits?
Yep.
Do you have a favorite caliber?
243, hands down.
Do you put much time into actually matching up like a round or a specific cartridge
Oh, yeah.
or brand with your specific
Yeah,
rifles?
for sure. I reload, and I won't take a rifle into the field unless it shoots like cloverleaf groups. Like I just won't do it, because if it's not, and I want to shoot a coyote at 500 yards, I don't know how off that's going to be. I don't know where that round's going to go specifically. And for one, I don't want to miss. But the other thing is, I don't want to wound a coyote. You know, I don't want to cause that animal to suffer. You know, so I want to know that I can make a clean, humane, you know, kill shot whenever that opportunity presents itself. But yeah, I reload, and any rifle that I own, it's shooting pinhole groups. So
As far as let's go back to calling a little bit. You know, one other thing that you're going to see coming with the Predator Society is a brand new hand call. Can you give us any tease on what that might be like?
it's awesome. It's gonna be so awesome, and I'm so pumped for it. And you're gonna be able to do every sound you need to do on this one call. And I'm gonna put content out there to educate you on everything from where to place your mouth, how much pressure to put on it, when to blow certain sounds on this call, different sequences to use on this call. It's gonna be awesome, and it's really gonna simplify, you know, like hand calling techniques. And because there's just not a lot of information out there on how to blow hand calls and what time of the year to use these sounds. Like, there's just not. And I'm super excited to be able to work with you guys and put that out there for people.
Absolutely. You know, when Mike, you know, designed the extinguisher as a deer call, you know, he made it so versatile, and it's so simple that you can go from a fawn to a doe to a buck so easily. And
Right.
and that came and was designed from experiencing out there in the field, listening to these deer and the natural sounds. And, you know, you've hunted all over the place with coyotes. So it's pretty cool to see that kind of same thing happening for a
Right.
predator call now, and being able to simplify it and really teach people, you know, everything that they need to know to make them more successful.
Is there any misconceptions? Kind of like we've noticed in like the deer hunting world, you know, people are very fixated on, okay, well, during the rut, that's when they're grunting and that's when they're doing their bleats. But, you know, in all honesty, deer are animals, and their grunts and bleats might change what they're trying to
Right.
vocalize throughout the seasons, but they're communicating year round. Is there a misconception like that too in the predator world?
Not necessarily. I mean, coyotes howl. I mean, there's not a time of the year we just don't hear coyotes howl, but there are times of the year we hear them howl more often, you know? And the thing about it is there's times when, you know, obviously your howls are going to work better. You know, they're going to be more enticed by those sounds. But, you know, I've killed coyotes in 90 degrees with rabbit before, because they always got to eat. But in the summer, pup distress works really well too, you know? So it's just what sounds are truly like working in that moment and why. Like, because I think, like I said, a lot of guys just go out there and they have one rabbit call and they blow it year round. They're like, why am I not killing these coyotes? Well, you know, and they might call one or two in, but they get frustrated because they're not that successful at it. And then they either quit doing it or, you know, they just get burnt out on it. But if you're able to understand, like, the times of the year when certain sounds are going to work better, you're going to be more successful. It's pretty simple, really.
What state do you think that you've been most successful in killing coyotes?
My buddy and I killed 25 in a day and a half in North Dakota once, and that was unreal. And I only had one hand call.
Wow.
Yeah, we killed all of them off of one hand call, and it was an open reed hand call. But Colorado, I don't want to put it out there. Everybody's gonna be like, let's go to Colorado. But there's tons of ground out there, and it's just wide open country. I mean, it's beautiful, but there are so many coyotes. But I kill a ton of them in Missouri. I mean, there's a lot of coyotes in Missouri. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how many coyotes we have down there in southwest Missouri. But thing about that is different areas are pressured harder than others, too. It's crazy because you get up above Kansas City, and my Missouri guys listening to this, they're like, oh, I know where he's going with this. It's harder to call coyotes in northern Missouri than it is southern because people run them with dogs more up there. You know, they're trying to shoot them out the window. They're chasing around in their fields with trucks. That doesn't happen a lot down where I'm at. So the coyotes aren't nearly as pressured. That does not mean you cannot call them, though, because I've had success in northern Missouri. You just have to change your tactics up tremendously to do it.
What other similarities do you see between deer hunting and coyote hunting? I mean, what tactics do you use that really overlap that might apply to all of our deer hunters listening?
Well, I mean, I'm going back to the scent control thing, you know? It's like if you're wearing your clothes into the gas station and eat a cheeseburger and all that stuff and, you know, pump gas and you're not doing anything to conceal that, it's not going to help your odds. It's going to work against you big time. And it just, like I said, it just makes sense to truly be mindful of your scent control. Coyotes work off the nose, so do deer. So why would you not do everything in your power to take care of that if you really want to be successful at it?
One thing I want to know about is optics use. You know, do you always have your binoculars with you out there? You know, are you just using your scope?
No, I always have my binos and my rangefinder with me, and I wear a chest harness so they're, you know, easily, you know, accessible. But one of the first things I do before I even turn the call on or start blowing my hand call is I sit down and I range different little landmarks out there because you never know when a coyote's just going to pop up somewhere, and you have to make a quick shot. And if you don't know the distance, then there's obviously an opportunity you're going to miss that coyote. But if you know that cedar tree is 245 yards and the coyote pops up right next to it and he's got you spotted, well, you know exactly where to hold on that coyote. And you're not going to guess, oh, he's 400 and make a mistake and shoot over top of him.
You bet. Well, I can tell you that's one of the first things that I do when I get into my tree stand.
Oh, yeah.
You know, too, especially when I'm bow hunting, you know, is get my rangefinder out and click them off, you know, just so I know, especially during the rut. I mean, yeah. You know, I always keep my rangefinder close, and, you know, ideally I want to range every deer right before I shoot them. But, you know what, doe comes running through there and big boy's behind her. Sometimes it's split second.
Yeah, you don't have much time.
And you got to take advantage of it. And you know, it's nice too, you know, some of the technology out there. I know Vortex has got some really great optics, but the ability to have a rangefinder in your binoculars now too, you know, is that something that you use or?
That I have, and it's a game changer because being able to, for one, you're minimizing your movement, whether you're deer hunting or coyote hunting. That's huge because if you spot a deer, obviously, or a coyote, and you have to put your binos down and then pick up a rangefinder and then range that animal, and then you put your rangefinder down and then you're on your rifle. No, if you have binos that have, you know, rangefinder technology in them, you already got the animal ranged. You drop and pick up your rifle and make a shot.
And I've had some experience using those, not only, you know, deer hunting. I see where they really could benefit you coyote hunting and hunting out west and all these different things. It's so cool to just, like you said, be able to pick up those binoculars,
absolutely,
click the range all in one motion. That's all. You don't have to carry an extra rangefinder, and you're set to go. So it's cool to see how technology really is benefiting us as hunters too, and making us more successful out there.
And I feel like if you have, the ability to range through your binos, you're making more precise ranges too. Yeah. Because a lot of rangefinders only have 4 to 6 power on them. Mm-hmm. And instead of ranging that tree, you can actually range the coyote at 500 yards,
Yep.
Dead on the coyote.
Yep. That's a really, really good point. Really good point. So I guess, circling back again, if you're going out there, have a game plan, even for myself in going out predator hunting potentially here, making a game plan, paying attention to the wind, paying attention to scent control. As far as calling, say I was going to go out there this fall, what advice would you give me on, starting to call?
Don't get frustrated and quit, because that's the biggest thing. I mean, it's hunting. You're not always going to be successful. And, a lot of these guys are like, I'm terrible at this. No, you just gotta learn, and just being out there in general is enjoyable for one, but you can't expect to go out and just be successful every stand. It's not going to happen. I've gone out and made the longest dry streak I ever had was 21 stands straight. And, you got that thought in your head after 15, you're like, I want to quit. This is horrible. But, I thought about, what am I doing? What can I change? What can I do differently? And I made changes, and then my success, changed. And I started, shooting more coyotes. And you just can't get frustrated and quit on it. You got to keep, learning and be a sponge and try to do everything in your power that you can do to up your odds of being successful from scent control to having good habits when you're shooting to, playing the wind. I mean, there's all kinds of factors in it.
When you're calling, are you typically blind calling, not seeing any animal in sight and trying to get a reaction and bring something in? Or are you calling once you see the animal?
No, you just go out there and you sit down and you call, and when they show up, they show up. But, it's out in Colorado. What's different about Colorado and Missouri, well, there's a lot of things different, but one of the things I do is a quality set of optics out there is super vital. I mean, you can see for miles. Before I call, obviously I range, but I'll sit there for 5 minutes before I even blow the call in glass, because 90% of the time I'll spot a coyote out there. So I've already got half the battle won right there. I know he's there. So then I can watch him work. If he goes down in a ditch circling, I can position my gun where I need to be positioned, and so.
Are coyotes pretty good? Can they pinpoint you if you're calling? You have to be more careful when you can see them and have a visual on them?
I mean, they pick up movement very well. Very well. So you definitely have to be still. And as far as setup goes, sitting by something that distorts your silhouette, you don't want to sit right on top of a hill and silhouette yourself, with the sun behind you or anything like that. And that's another thing getting into. Sun, people don't think about it, but that's a huge deal. Because if you're sitting facing the sun, you're shining like a diamond. And I have a video on YouTube that completely validates what I'm about to say. If I have the wind, a crosswind, or in my face and the sun at my back, I'm completely confident if a coyote's coming in, they're not going to spot me, because they have the sun in their face. And in that video on YouTube, there's one standing at 30 yards for 5 minutes solid, and he's squinting like this at us because he can't see us. And we're not really that covered up. And then the other two work around, and I'm filming, and I pan off, and he drops one to the left, and then he goes back and shoots that one that was at 30 yards still standing there squinting. So the sun, even the sun plays a factor. Now, if the sun was on the other side setting, we never would have probably shot those coyotes. We'd have been shining, they'd have seen us been out of there. It's just crazy. There's a lot of things to think about if you want to be successful. And I know that can be overwhelming too. And I feel bad because I'm throwing all this stuff out there. But, you don't have to be perfect to kill coyotes. You don't. But if you truly put the time and the effort into learning this stuff, you're going to be more successful at it. Well,
and I think that's a great way to kind of wrap things up here. And guys, look forward to the Predator Society, because that's what we are going to be trying to bring you is simplified information. It all sounds like there's so many tactics out there, and there really are, but what we're trying to do is simplify them. We're trying to give you as much knowledge as we can broken down so that you can go out there and really be successful. Again, it's going to be a lot like the Deer Society, but from a predator standpoint. And that's what's so cool about it. So look forward to the Predator Society. Look forward to a new call from Heath. You'll be seeing his face a lot more. Thank you, Heath, for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
My
Heath.
pleasure.
Guys, go download the Deer Society app. It's free on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks, guys.